Good morning and welcome back to Tabletop Tuesday here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we're going to be taking a look at Disney's animated from Funko Games. Now, I recently did an unboxing for this, but I also took it with me on a cruise that my wife and I went on because we were going to have plenty of downtime, and I wanted to give this game a try. Basically, it is you and up to 3 other players taking on the role of an animation studio trying to create one of the classic Disney films. Now, I'll open it up here in just a second to show you how that all works, but I was also kind of curious because it features multiple films from the classic eras of Disney, and I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work as far as a cooperative game. So as we get into talking about the rules, talking about how the game plays, obviously I will show that off. But I think that Funko has done really well with this game design and making something that, while it doesn't recreate the experience of an animator, it does bring in a lot of elements that sort of gives you that feel. And I think that is one of the strongest things that Funko has been doing with the games that they produced. So before we get into it, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I try to put out a few videos each week talking about all sorts of tabletop content, whether it's board games, role-playing, miniatures, or anything in between, and I'd love for you to come along and see what we have to share. In addition, there are going to be links down below, whether it's affiliate links or social media links, or just more descriptions on how you can support the channel. And if you choose to do so, we'd love to have you. We'd very much appreciate it. But regardless, we appreciate you being here. So, with that done, let's go ahead and get into it. So, first off, as usual, I have to give them credit. I love the design of Funko Games. This, obviously, it gives you sort of an image of I don't know exactly what it's called, but we're just going to call it an animator's workstation. Basically, where they put the paper and are able to spin it around to get different angles, things like that. But it just has that that look for it that that automatically is going to kind of tell you what you're doing. Now, when you open the box, obviously we've got our rules. This I actually wanted to talk about a little bit as well, because they also give you, so there's 5 different films: Snow White, Fantasia, Alice in Wonderland, 101 Dalmatians, and Aladdin. And then there's also the studio box. So these are all individual boxes that contain all of the parts that are needed for this particular game, or this particular movie. And then the studio box is the generic components that you're going to need for the game. Now, in this case, because the movie that I worked on was 101 Dalmatians, we're going to go ahead and show that. Obviously, it's got art that reminds you of the film. Sort of looks like anyway, it's a fun little add-on, and I thought it was cool. All right. So first off, I'm going to say that I thought all of the components were fantastic. Everything is put together very well. They're nice quality. The cards are really good, but they have sort of a satin finish. Me personally, I am always going to advocate for linen finish, just because it does give you a little bit more texture to hold on to the cards. All right, so basically, I realize I'm kind of doing this all as I talk about it, but I did want to show you how that setup worked. All right, so the first thing that you are going to need as the player, because we're going to go through the player setup, then I'll show you the general setup, and then I'll talk a little bit about how the game actually plays. So each player is going to need 3 things out of the box. They're going to need this this film board. And I've got all sorts of little pieces all over my infamously small work table. I know. Always quality, folks. You're also going to need a player board. Now, or an action board. And when you start, you're going to want to put it with this side up. Basically, just if you look for these action icons on the left, that'll tell you what side that you're going to need. You're also going to have a villain board, and this is actually going to go on the generic setup, so we will come back to that one. And then you're going to need your box of components. Now, they give you these little boxes because there's a few things that make up each of these movies. So first off, you're going to have 3 animation cells. You'll notice we've got Roger, Pongo and Perdita, and Anita here on the bottom. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and put your your animation cells down on the bottom. Whoa, losing my canine crunchies. There are going to be some wooden tokens for each of the film. In this case, we've got 6 bones. They represent canine crunchies treats. So we're going to set these over here below the action board. You're going to have these background tiles. You're going to want to, you can have them face up, face down. Honestly, it doesn't technically matter. But you're going to take these and you're going to set these over to the left. And then you have 5 calamity cards. Now, they should all have the name of the film on the bottom. And these are going to be combined with all of the other calamity cards from all of the other films that are in play. So, the objective of the game is for each player to color in the background by placing these tiles. And I'll get into the description on how that works. But all these tiles just fit in nice and snug against the board. Once you have the background section completed, so like I've finished this middle section for Pongo and Perdita, I'm going to be able to take the animation cell and move that up. And then once I have all 3 sections, all 3 cells built, then I get to challenge the villain of my movie and get them animated and into the film, which they are trying to prevent because they know it doesn't work out for them in the end. Overall, that's pretty much it as far as what you're going to need for your individual setup. Oh, I did forget, you will also need 3 animation cards. Now, the animation cards, there's heart, teamwork, inspiration, and grit, and focus. Okay? Those are going to be used for a variety of different things as the game goes on. In fact, one of the things that you get to do is once you've completed a section and put the animation cell on it, there is a symbol from the card, and so I could use a heart card for Pongo and Perdita, which lets me, for each black and white paint token on the studio board, I get to reveal cards from the animation deck and choose one to take. So, again, you get little special abilities that can be triggered by the cards. The cards can also do some other things. But basically, as long as all players are able to complete their film, the background and all the animations, including the villain, then the players will win the game. If anybody doesn't finish their movie, all the players lose. So it is cooperative, but it is also kind of interesting in that you're also playing sort of your own little game. It's not quite like a Euro where you're doing your own game and the actions of everybody else don't really matter. Because as you'll see when I get into the studio board, the actions that other players take dramatically affect what you're going to be able to do. So, give me a minute to reset, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, so in front of us we see the studio board. Now, as always, this is the infamously small work table, so I will work around it. This doesn't quite fit in the shot, but I'll do my best to make sure that you don't miss out on anything. So first off, over here on the side, those calamity cards that I mentioned, you are going to take these, shuffle them up, and based on the difficulty, the game will tell you a certain number of calamity cards to put out. So when we were first playing, you could go as low as 1 calamity card, but we opted for 2 just to give it a little bit more challenge, which I actually think worked really well for us. We did still beat it. You know, you're supposed to... I did hear somewhere that a cooperative game should only have about a 30% success rate, but for the first one, it's always nice to get a nice win in there so that you're willing to come back to the game. Personal opinion. But you're going to put your calamities down here on the side, and these are things that either need to be eliminated by the end or before the villain takes their turn, or the villain's going to get to trigger and do some bad things to the studio. So calamities are going to go to the side. Now we also then have the deadline tracker. Basically, it's the turn tracker. You're going to be able to take up to 13 turns. Why they settled on that many, I have absolutely no idea. It's a rather odd number. Pun unintended, but we'll go with it. But this is essentially the amount of time that you have to finish the game. There are things that can advance the deadline tracker faster, but essentially think of it as you have a maximum of 13 turns in order to complete your film. You then have the villain section. So you're going to take all of the villains that you are using, and you are going to put them in a stack according to the year that the movie was released, and they're going to stack in order. Now this will tell you when you get to the villain turn what they're going to do. So you're going to advance the deadline and check your hand limit on the animation cards. Max you can have is 7, and then it's going to tell you what to do for each calamity card that is still on the table. So if you're unable to get rid of them, in this case, Cruella de Vil will collectively the players must collectively discard 2 paint tokens or 1 canine crunchies token. If they can't, then the deadline tracker is going to advance. So once that's done, she goes to the bottom of the stack. The next villain is revealed, and then a new round is going to start. All right. So let's look at the rest of the board. Obviously, we've got a bunch of components to put out as well. So first off, you have the animation deck and the animation discard. You're going to shuffle these cards, and you're going to set them over here in the pile. You are then going to have 5 different, I'm calling them tokens for lack of a better term, but you're going to have 5 action tokens that are going to go across the bottom of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you do want to shuffle those up, and just place them on the board. And we'll talk about what each one of those does here in just a moment. All right. Get out this giant mess of tokens. All right. There are magic tokens. Each player should start with 1, so we're just going to set one of these off to the side. You have a deadline token. Looks like a little movie reel. You're going to put that on the start location of the deadline tracker. The first player token will go to the player who is making the film that was produced first. So basically, whoever plays Snow White is always going to be the first player. This does not rotate during the game. So it's the same player is always the first player. Then you're also going to shuffle up these paint tokens. There's red, green, blue, yellow, black, and white. And you will fill in the ink and paint section. I'm just going to put a few in here just in the interest of time. All right. So, what do you do on your actions? So, honestly, it depends on which action you're taking. So, as you can see, they are all numbered 1 through 5. The number indicates essentially how much of something you're going to be able to do. So, if I take the number 5 ink and paint, I can take up to 5 value worth of paint tokens. So in this case, I say I take red, yellow, and wild, because red and yellow are on the 2 line, wild is on the 1 line. That is 5 value of paint tokens. So I'm just going to take those and set them next to my player board. The next option is background. So in this case, background is on the 4 spot. So that is where this board comes into play. So for a 4, I'm going to take, so say in this case, I'll put down 3. This tile's worth 3. And then I can take one of the singles and put that in. So I've placed 4 tiles worth of background. Now, if you ever cover up one of the action icons that's on your film board, then you get to take that action at whatever its current value is. So say I covered up the magic token. Well, if magic is in 3 spot, then I get to do it as a 3 action. So you do want to kind of be strategic as far as when you place those pieces, because essentially it's going to let you get some extra actions in, and you don't want to waste them on something where you need a 4 or a 5, but the token in question is over here at 1 or 2. All right, next one up. Actually, we'll do magic last. So then we've got animation at value 2. So for animation, in slot 1 and 2, you're going to get 1 card. Slot 3 and 4, you're going to get 2 cards. Slot 5, you're going to get 3 cards. And then finally, there's the sound token. Now, this is different for each player, but essentially, the tokens in question, the wooden tokens that each player has access to, is going to determine what the sound action does for that particular player. So for the 101 Dalmatians, if you take the sound action, you get to take X value, so wherever it's at. So in this case, it's at 1, so I would get to take 1 value of black, white, or wild paint. So in this case, I could take the wild, since that's still there at 1. And then I also get to hand out some of my tokens to other players. So in this case, I would get to hand out 1 Canine Crunchy token, because I took 1 paint token. So basically, the tokens are all going to let you help other players. In this particular case, a Canine Crunchy can be used either as a wild paint token or as a magic token, which we'll talk about in just a second. But there are other tokens, like in Snow White, she passes out dwarf tokens, and the dwarf tokens essentially let you boost the values of the different actions. So that's what those do. Now, magic. How does magic work? So, as I said earlier, each player is going to have 1 magic token, or if you've been lucky enough to get a Canine Crunchy token, that will work as a magic token as well. You can return the magic token to the supply to actually do the magic action. And what that allows you to do is do any one of the other 4 actions at the value of the magic action. So say I needed to use the sound action, I could use the magic action, because since sound is at 1, obviously not very useful, I could do magic at 3 using sound, and so I get to do sound at 3 instead of sound at 1. So once you take your action, so in this case, since we just talked about magic, you're going to take it off, you're going to slide everything down, and you're going to put the action that was used into the 1 slot. Now that's where you have to start working with the other players, because having the higher values obviously are going to be more useful. They're going to let you get more of your backgrounds out, let you get the characters animated and onto the board. And you have to also think about the other players, because they also need to finish their movies. And so if you're always taking the good actions at the high values, it's going to be much harder for them to complete the film. So it does have a lot of back and forth, talking with each other, making sure that I can complete the actions that I need to while not impeding the actions that you need to take as well. So essentially that is it. Once you have completed all of the background and the animation for your films, you then do reveal this. And so in this case, so for Cruella de Vil, on your turn, if each player has at least one Canine Crunchies token, you may then discard a black paint, a white paint, an inspiration, and a focus animation card. These symbols, again, represent the animation cards. And then you can actually take Cruella, turn her over, place her on the board, and your film is done. Now, does that mean that you are done playing the game? No, you are still going to have to take actions, because everybody else has to finish their film as well. But again, it's going to make it, you have to be thoughtful as far as what actions you're doing, what kind of things you can do to help, even though you're complete on your side of the board. The nice thing is this game is playable solo. I have not tried it that way, however. For some reason, I still have a hang up on playing games solo. But overall, that's how you play Disney animated. All right, so final thoughts. What did I think of this? Honestly, I absolutely loved it. It was probably the most difficult of games from Funko that I have run into as far as learning the rules. The first time I tried learning the rules during the cruise, there was an activity going on where I was, and it was kind of hard to concentrate. In addition, I was still opening and unpunching, all that kind of stuff. But the next day we were actually able to go find a table in a quiet area and go through the rules. There was a little bit of confusion, but overall we figured it out. It took about an hour to play, and it ended up being a lot of fun. I realized that this is not animation. This is not having to draw and do everything and get everything recorded, but it still gave the feel of sort of like a studio manager trying to make sure that all of the work gets done. The art is good. The quality of the clear cards is fantastic. It's very, very well printed. They're very clear. And it just does add a little bit of animation magic. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Absolutely recommend that you pick it up. Even if you're not necessarily a fan of the old Disney films, there's just something fun about this game that that goes to those old kind of movies from when you were a kid or as a parent with your kids. Honestly, I highly recommend it, and yeah, we'll leave it at that. So, with that said, have you played animated? Put it down in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Did I miss something up? Let me know. Let's talk about it. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.